Watch American Idol. You can tell by watching the judges' faces in those first few seconds if they're going to say yes, right? Like those first few seconds matter. Social media is the exact same way. So I think you just have to be authentic to your personality. And my personality is very like, I'm used to being on a stage. I'm used to being big, taking up space and being present. And if I didn't apply that to my videos, regardless of what I'm talking about, it wouldn't feel authentic. And I think people can sense when you're putting on a front. So that is my biggest recommendation, is be entertaining, whatever that means for you.
I'm Joss Wong, a journalist and YouTube creator. I've made a career out of learning, and I'm here with Study Hall to talk to people about how they learn and the effect that their college experiences have had on their lives. Today, I'm talking with the STEM communicator behind modern-day Eratosthenes, a mathematician, sci-fi author, and singer, Ashley Christine. We're talking about her life, her career, and her college journey. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
Let's start in with the early days. When you were younger, what were your dreams for your adulthood?
In high school, since I grew up in the woods, I grew up in a very rural town near the Canadian border. I think when you grow up like that, you're just like, I just want to make money. Really, that's what it is, because it's a much harder life. You're like, I just want money. So I originally wanted to work in accounting or finance.
No.
Because as a sheltered woodland creature, I thought that's where money was. And I was good at math, right? And that was something that my physics teacher in high school was always like, you're not the best student, but you're the most ambitious. and the most enthusiastic.
You dreamed of accounting. I've never heard that from anybody.
It was just because it was numbers.
Yeah.
Whatever format the numbers come in, I never cared. So I was like, oh, I'll just convert them into finance and then I can make money. And then obviously you go to business school, right? You don't go to a STEM school. And you do take math courses, but they stop at Calc 1 if you even go that far. And that was when I was kind of like, oh, this is boring. and I don't like this. So it was really like, yeah, you want to make money when you're younger. And in high school, so many girls wanted to be like CEOs without really knowing what that word meant. And then a lot of us ended up going to college in business schools, and we were all like, oh, this is lame, actually. I don't think I like this anymore. I want to get out, which is what ended up happening.
How young were you when you realized that you liked doing math?
I can tell you the exact day, because it was out of spite. It was 8th grade, and I think it's very normal for your math teacher to get pregnant, and then you get a substitute. It happened to be 7th grade for one math teacher, 8th grade another math teacher. Both years, I had the same substitute teacher who was old, cankerous, and very boring. I used to try to tell my mom that he was the most egocentric human being I've ever seen in my life. He would put equations on the board and be like, you'll never understand these because I'm a genius. And my mom didn't believe me. She did not believe that this was real. And then at parent-teacher conference, she went and she was like, that is the worst human being I've ever seen in my life. So I had him for 2 years. He ruined math for me, to be perfectly honest, in that period, because I was like, this is boring. It's just him going off on an ego trip. One day, he put a quadratic equation up. He's like, this isn't going to make sense to half of you. And he left it on the board. Normally, he erases it. So I memorized it. And then this is before the internet. So I memorized it. I went home. I tried to figure it out. Just, raw dog with books. And so I did figure it out overnight, which I don't know how I did that looking back. And so the next day it was still up on the board. And he said something again about how much of a genius he is and how stupid we all are. And I was like, I can solve that. And he was like, really? And so he gave me chalk, because it was a chalkboard.
No, you went up to the board.
And I did the whole thing.
It's like a movie scene.
Yeah. And I did make one mistake in it, but it was still like essentially the right answer. I think I had like a negative instead of a positive number, but you could tell I knew how to do it, that I had figured it out.
Right.
And no congratulations, no like nothing. But I saw all the students be like, yeah, finally.
That's incredible.
I was like, okay, I figured that out by myself on my own when I was like 13. And I just kind of became addicted to the puzzle of it, because I think that's what mathematics is. It's a puzzle. And I get messages a lot from 17-year-olds who are like, I want to pursue mathematics, but I'm kind of nervous about it, but I like numbers. I'm like, then don't do it. That's a bad reason, because you will not see numbers after junior year. You will not see a number bigger than 9 after Calc 3. And I was like, but do you like puzzles? And half the time they'll be like, yeah, I like puzzles and riddles and stuff. I'm like, you'll be fine then. You'll be fine. Because that is what it is. you being given a problem and you have to try to figure out how to solve it. Mathematicians don't memorize equations. It's more like a type of logic that you have to learn.
Right.
And I had cracked it a little bit in 8th grade and I just got addicted to it.
That's incredible. And the problems are solvable. So you know that there's a reward waiting for you at the end of that effort.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So all through high school, you were excelling in math.
I wouldn't say excelling. I took all the math courses that we had and the physics courses that we had offered, but I definitely wasn't the best. And that would be a theme, honestly, all the way through grad school, is I was never the best. I was somewhere in the middle. I just liked it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try telling people. It's like, you don't have to be one of these Goodwill Hunting geniuses you can just enjoy it. That's fine. And I've even noticed a lot of companies in the job market, if you say you're a mathematician, they kind of space out and just assume you're smart. It comes with its own assumptions for people. So as long as you survive the program, you'll probably be okay. You don't have to be an A+ student by any means.
Mm-hmm. So you had this affinity for math, you enjoyed it, and then you also had a vision for a career that could turn into money.
Yeah.
At what point did you start thinking about going to college and what you would study when you went there?
I mean, I did what I think a lot of kids in the early 2000s did, where you just kind of got funneled into college immediately, which I did not want to do. Because I took a lot of AP courses and stuff, and it's pretty exhausting. You're in school for 12 years nonstop, and then it's like, wait, why am I doing this again if I don't have to?
Yeah.
But external forces push you into it, right? And I was pretty upset. I actually really, really did not want to go. But the one thing I really wanted to do is because I think I grew up in we had a very kind of militaristic upbringing because it's a small town. A lot of veterans moved there. It's a very intense environment versus nature. So like I had search and rescue training. The kids are all trained to work together in schools. I mean, for fun, my science teacher took us out to learn how to catch fish with our bare hands.
Wow. Which
is a team effort, by the way. So yeah, for us, everything was you all have to work together. If one of you fails, you all fail. It was kind of militaristic in that sense. And a lot of my friends went into the military. And if you enlist with your friends, they try to usually keep you together. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so my logic was like, oh, I'll do that. And then I can be with my friends. I can travel. And then I can go to college later when I'm not as burned out. But again, external factors, that did not happen. So I was a little bitter in college, to be perfectly honest. And it was worse by the fact I was in business school and I was just like, this is not the right environment for me. But I mean, I look back and I'm like, I'm kind of glad I didn't do that because that was like peak Iraq. And I have an affinity for languages. And I was studying Arabic and Russian at the time. So the odds of me being sent overseas were pretty high. Mm-hmm. And so my mom was worried. There was like a lot of factors pushing me into being safe in school. And I ended up really actually hating it the first 3 years, I would say.
How did you choose a school?
Oh, it's New Hampshire. So you only have like 3 options, except for also Montana. Again, I don't know if this is still an arrangement that exists, but 20 years ago, you could get in-state tuition in Montana if you went to school in New Hampshire. Because the states are so small, you have so few in-state options. And New England schools are very expensive. UVM, I think, for Vermont is the most expensive in-state tuition. I think UMass Amherst is second. UNH is up in the top 10 for sure. Like these are expensive in-state schools. So my parents were like, it has to be in-state. So I went to UNH, like a lot of people did. So it was just another step where I was like, I just keep feeling like I'm getting cornered into something I don't want to do. But when you're 17 years old, when you're applying, you don't know. You're just a kid and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to be doing this stuff. And I mean, honestly, I would say it probably wasn't until my late 20s, maybe 30, when I really locked in on what I wanted to do anyway. And I don't know if that's normal, but I feel like you have to be a little patient with 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds sometimes and be like, you don't have to. Mm-hmm. You don't have to just jump right back in. Like my mom always says that is one of her biggest regrets is like, we should have just given you the money we were going to give you for college so you could travel for 2 years or something, or open a business or whatever, and then go back to college later if you want. So, but back then, again, it was a lot of pressure to go to college in the early 2000s. It was like, if you do not go to college, the idea was that you would not be able to survive economically. I think it's getting better. maybe.
Okay. So what you found yourself disliking, was it the kind of classes you were taking? Were you on campus? Did you feel like you were able to find your place socially?
Yeah, I mean, I had been racing road bikes for a long time, so I had all my friends in that community. So it wasn't difficult. I was on campus. I did live on campus for freshman and sophomore year, moved out junior year. I think that's pretty normal as well. But the classes were really, really boring. I think business school works if you kind of know what you want to do anyway, or maybe like your parents own a business and you're there just to kind of learn how finance works so you can take over. Then I'm like, yeah, do it. But for somebody like me who had no real obligation to be there, I was like, I don't know if this is my. Like, I remember taking a law course, which is probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because it was an elective. And that really changed my perspective of how the world functions, because this was a real lawyer telling us, like, here's what you think is right and wrong, and here's what the law says is right and wrong. And there was something about that I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. And it's the only class in this whole experience I've really enjoyed. That was the first sign to me that I was definitely doing the wrong thing, because I was so excited about this law class and I hated everything else. I was like, ooh, I got to get out of.
So did you change your major? Did you think about changing it?
No, I left. I left college after 3 years, and this was now the subprime mortgage crash. So finding a job was pretty much impossible. And it wasn't just me. Even kids that were still in school that I knew were really struggling. And I worked at a TGI Fridays as a server for a few years. There was no money in that. So that was pretty tough. And my roommates and I were like, we should just move to LA. I don't know why. I was a classically trained musician. So I was like, I guess I could take up singing. And so we moved to Los Angeles like that summer. And I was able to get some decent like bookkeeping jobs and stuff because I didn't have the degree, but I had enough to like pass a basic bookkeeping exam. And so the woman who hired me was a CPA, and she basically taught me everything she knew for 2 years. And then I was working as a demo singer. So I worked with a lot of engineers, and one of them was having a birthday party. So we went to this birthday party in downtown Los Angeles with all these musicians and engineers. And who was there but half of the SpaceX team from this one department? Because their director was best friends, or their girlfriends were best friends or something, with this sound engineer. So for some reason, this group of SpaceX engineers were also friends with these musicians and sound engineers, and we're all in this party. And I ended up dating one of them, and I would tell him about some of the ideas that I had had and things that I had like learned in school. And he was like, you need to go back to school for mathematics. He's like, that's what you need to do. And I think being around him and all of these engineers, I was like, this is my jam. Like, this is way better than even being a singer, or definitely better than working in accounting. I enrolled in school, I think, like that semester.
Wow.
So yeah, what are the odds? This one party and all these nerds show up with all the like super cool musicians.
It's so crazy how like unpredictable life can be, and how much your life has been shaped by like political economic forces that are really defining the era. It's so interesting. But the music thing came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
When did that come into the picture?
I know. It started when I was 7. I think because my mom couldn't play an instrument, she was like, my children are going to be able to. So me and both of my sisters, I took violin, middle took guitar, youngest took piano, but I was the only one that actually really took to music. And I picked up their instruments as well. Yeah, so when demo singing popped up, it came up because I knew a lot of folk writers, and I have a deep voice, which usually works for women in folk singing. It was fun. It was a fun gig. You got to work in a studio. The money's not bad. You meet a lot of people. You get to work on a lot of cool songs. I don't even like going to parties. I don't even know why I went to this one.
So you're in Hollywood, you're working as a musician, like pretty much in show business, but not really aspiring to end up there necessarily?
No interest.
And then you're like, it's actually math.
Yeah.
It's math for me.
Yeah.
What was it about these engineers that was appealing to you? Like, what did you learn about what they did that made you think that this math should be your path forward?
It wasn't them so much. It was probably their boss. Because he was an engineer, but he was so good at speaking that they put him in these managerial director positions because he was really good at communicating to people. So he could take the really complex stuff that his engineers were working on and then give it to the higher ups and make it make sense. And there was something about that I really loved. Like, to me, that was intelligence. And I was like, I want to be able to do that. But he had to have the background first. He had to be an engineer first. And I was just like, oh, these people are kind of rare to have both skill sets. And I just thought that was the most fascinating thing. I was like, I want that.
Did you not think that you had that already at that point, that you thought like, oh, maybe I'm a storyteller, maybe I'm an explainer?
No.
Okay.
I think because I was comparing myself to him, I was like, I'm nowhere near that. And I need to figure out how to get there. I'm very competitive too. So I wasn't afraid of the challenge. I just had to figure out how to do it.
Okay.
And he was very helpful. He'd be like, you need to enroll in this and you should take these classes. Here are my old grad school books. It's one of those things they always say, if you have one person who believes in you, it doesn't matter how many people don't. If you have that one person who believes in you, you can pull it off. And for me at that stage in my life, on that particular journey, it was definitely him, which is crazy to like, that I met at a party randomly.
Just someone comes into your life and completely, alters your trajectory a little bit. So you had a vision for the kind of skill set you wanted. You knew that you wanted to do math. What was your next step to getting closer to that goal?
I wanted to stay within the New Hampshire system to basically guarantee that I didn't have to redo those first 3 years. I really only had like 2 semesters left. So I did the last 2 semesters at Southern New Hampshire University remote. I did summer courses too. So I really cranked it out. I think within a year, I had finished everything.
And then money-wise, how were you working this whole time to finish up paying for your bachelor's, or how did you finance your college?
Ultimately, for undergrad, I only had to take out $7,000 because I was working full-time through the summer. It wasn't as expensive back then. My parents had helped. The scholarships had helped. So it was like a combination of things. It was grad school when I was looking at schools in Los Angeles, which again, I was pretty broke. And so the California State University system is pretty affordable. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. I applied, November 2019. So enrollment would have been August 2020.
Wow.
And everything was remote. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. My school was like, we can put your enrollment on hold. When this whole thing blows over, you can just come back. That was the plan. So I was like, okay. So I left thinking that the fall semester of 2021, everything would be back to normal. We'd be in the classroom. It'd be fine. I'll take this year off or whatever. That's not what happened. Because remember there was a resurgence or something. They were basically saying like the fall semester might also be remote. By that point, I was so frustrated. So I was like, well, I'm going to post my thesis and see if I can just bounce some ideas off of 10 to 15 people on social media, TikTok, Instagram, and just find 10 people who understand what I'm talking about so I don't forget this stuff, because it's been a year and the video went viral, which shocked me because I didn't feel like I explained it in an elementary way, but I guess I did. And I thought that was a fluke, so I tested it out again, and that video went viral, and it just kept going viral, and I was like, oh, I might be good at this. And I kept doing it. By the time the schools reopened and they were fully in person, I was actually already making money doing social media, and it felt like I was better at it. And I was like, well, I could pursue a PhD and work in a lab and never be around a human being ever again, or I can just keep doing this, and whenever this fails, I'll just go back to school. So that was kind of my logic, and I've just been doing it ever since, and it's been working out.
And it was your thesis was your first video? What was your thesis about?
The thesis that I wanted to do was about the surface area of a sphere. So if you have a flat piece of paper and it's just a circle, there's more coverage on like a tennis ball than there is on just a flat piece of paper. So you think, oh, as I go up in spatial dimensions, that surface area gets bigger and bigger. What happens is though, around 7.2, so like just above the 7th dimension, surface area actually starts to decrease. And there is technically a mathematical explanation for it, but I had a theory that our equation for surface area was missing something that at 2D, 3D, which is the world we live in, is negligible. But if wormholes really exist, if higher spatial dimensions really exist, if the interstellar world, if any of that is real, we're going to need to know the size and shape of things, or how do we navigate around them? So I was like, ooh, I'd like to figure out if there's something more to surface area we don't know about. Yeah, so the video was just me holding up a piece of paper with a circle on it and a tennis ball, trying to show, that jump in how much space it's taking up.
And why do you think it took off?
I don't know. I do know one video I made about it that people loved was me saying that whatever you learned in school about math is never the full story. There's always another layer. It's not that we're hiding. It's just you don't even know about that. This story gets bigger. Like acceleration's another good example. Like you think all this stuff's really basic and it's like, no, this can get really complicated actually. And I think that was appealing to people.
Yeah. And people, I mean, I guess people who are already interested in math would be interested, but maybe other people who are just can be inspired to be curious about these kinds of mysteries. And then you were making money through just like the creator partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had a full-time job. You know, this was just something I was doing for fun to pass the time and to keep my mind fresh because I'd been out of school for a year and I was like concerned it was going to be a little like plunging into cold water, you know? I think that was when TikTok was just starting to kind of roll out an RPM, but it was really bad. It was like, 3 cents or something like that. So, you could have a video go viral and you got $100 for it or something. So it wasn't great, but to me, that was a sign of, oh, I'm getting paid on some level for this. Like there's probably an opportunity here. And then I stretched out. I didn't just stick with TikTok. I did as many as I could. So if one does poorly one month, the other usually compensates. So that's kind of how I pay the bills at this stage in my life, which is crazy. Like getting paid for that is nuts to me.
How did you approach social media in a way that, ended up panning out? Like what skills were you able to apply to that task?
That was definitely from singing and being a performer. I think because music is a lot like that when you're doing a live performance. If you are not on pitch in those first 5 seconds, everybody's like ready to get out. They're like, oh boy, she's like, watch American Idol. You can tell by watching the judges' faces in those first few seconds if they're going to say yes, right? Like those first few seconds matter. Social media is the exact same way. So I think you just have to be authentic to your personality. And my personality is very like, I'm used to being on a stage. I'm used to being big, taking up space and being present. And if I didn't apply that to my videos, regardless of what I'm talking about, it wouldn't feel authentic. And I think people can sense when you're putting on a front. So that is my biggest recommendation is be entertaining, whatever that means for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the algorithm is kind of a puzzle to figure out, right? Like you talk about the first 5 seconds, you had an intuitive sense that this was something that you could beat, like it's almost like a game that you can play. Yeah.
It is a lot of experimentation. I was doing a lot of that in the beginning.
Okay.
And so what I do now is a mixture between what social media platforms have told me to do, to be perfectly frank, because they have things they want to see, but then also what I discovered. I'm doing the best that I can with what I have seen work.
Right. And then just being you. And when you were thinking about the content that you wanted to line up to present to people, what resources were you drawing from to know what kind of stories to tell on your platform?
In the beginning, it was stuff that I knew people didn't know super great. Things that they kind of knew about but didn't really fully appreciate, like how orbit works and gravity. My early videos were more of did you knows, and then it turned into news. Because labs and research facilities, they're always coming up with really cool stuff that I just think people don't know how to appreciate. And these labs don't have PR teams and marketing teams a lot of the time. So they don't even know how to advertise what they're doing. And then you have a reporter who writes some dry article, doesn't really know how to make it spicy either. So I would find these research papers, I would find these articles and be like, this is so cool. Why is nobody talking about this? And then I would dial it to 100, like I always do. And then people would be like, oh, this is cool. I get it. And I would say 1 out of 10 times I get an email or a message from that lab company, et cetera, being like, thanks for the coverage. And I'm like, you need a marketing team.
Yeah, they're so excited to probably hear it expressed so well from somebody. Because sometimes the people doing the work struggle to know how to communicate it.
It's basically when you're surrounded by people who work in the same industry or are interested in the same things, you guys all talk about it so much that you forget what people outside of that circle don't know. I think having friends who aren't in the industry helps a lot. Because like I'll say on the phone or I'll text them, I'll be like, oh, there's this really cool thing. And they'll look at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I use my friends as test dummies sometimes.
Yeah. See what lights them up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you look back on your college experience, I mean, are there any connections you can draw between things you learned from going through it the way that you went through it to what you're doing now and the skills that you need to succeed?
For sure. If you go to business school or if you go to a STEM school, liberal arts school, I think stats is pretty much mandatory for like every program, I think. And I will say studying that was probably one of the smartest things that my business school pushed, because you really start to understand how important it is to have as much data as possible and to understand that data so that you can move forward to make decisions. And it's dry and it's boring. And like, I get it, but I'm telling you, it's so valuable, because that's what I did early on in my career. I was like, okay, I have all this data, and I would try to compile all that to really understand my audience and what they needed, and then using that to understand human nature. I really do think stats is probably one of the most important courses you could take, regardless of whatever it is you're studying. There's nothing more important than understanding the people around you and the data they create.
How much do you wish you could go back and do it a different way versus kind of being happy about where you landed?
I know it's tough because so many external factors played a role in what happened to me in a way that when I talked to some of my friends, it wasn't the case. You know, they were in high school, they jumped into college, they graduated, got a job. So it's kind of tough because obviously I landed fine, so I'm okay with the way it went. If I didn't know it was going to end here, I would 100% not have gone to college right after high school. I would have 100% taken 2 years off and figured out, like, do I really care about money that much? Come to find out, I really don't. In my town, it was your friend has a snowmobile. That was like, I want money, you know? And so, because you're a kid and you don't really fully understand yourself or what your own priorities are. And I think if I had traveled or worked or even opened my own business and I went back at 21, 22, I would have had a much more concrete view of what I like. I would have found math eventually, I think. Yeah, no regrets, but only because it worked out, which I think is what most people would say.
Right.
Yeah.
You talked about how the sort of external, political, economic, viral forces in the world have shaped your path. I think that people who are young today are also feeling these big forces, making their futures uncertain. I mean, AI probably being at the top of the list, but also basic things about housing costs and education costs. What advice would you have for someone who was maybe graduating high school today and not really knowing what kind of future is waiting for them?
It's tough because some careers and some kids, they can stick to the traditional format and it's fine. People who are like, I want to be a doctor. Okay, very simple, straightforward path. It's a long path. You should start now, you know, if you want to have your own practice in your 30s or something. A lawyer, same thing. It's roughly going to be probably about the same. It's okay. When it comes to kids who are kind of on the fence, I would say one of two things. And let me say why first. The jobs that they're going to school for right now are jobs that existed 25 years ago. And AI is going to be changing a lot of that. And the dust hasn't settled yet on what it's going to look like, what the new jobs are going to look like, what jobs are going to be irrelevant. And I think paying all of that money, again, if your parents are rich, you know, go for it. But if you have to pay for it and you're not sure, wait until the dust settles, because we might have a completely different workforce that will be available to you at a university that right now universities are like, we don't really know we don't really know how this is going to look yet, or go to trade school. You can never go wrong with trade school. And they're actually having a major decrease in jobs right now because people have all taken these white collar jobs. But we still need plumbers and electricians, and we still need those jobs. And when all the boomers retire, which is happening in the next 5-ish years, the last of them really, there's going to be this huge opportunity for a lot of young people to make some pretty good money because these companies are going to be desperate for blue collar workers. Go to a trade school or take a couple years off. Or if you want to do like careers that aren't going to probably change too much, like being a doctor, being a lawyer, those kinds of careers. So it depends.
Yeah. Do you think about how your career might change in this new world?
Yes.
I'm seeing more and more AI on my feeds on YouTube where I'm focused. How do you think continuing education will play a role in whatever comes next for you?
We all talk about this so much and trying to figure out what it's going to look like. Because we can all feel a change is happening. We just don't know if it's good or bad. I personally think it's good because the reason why I do what I do is because technology is advancing so fast and there's discoveries and science is moving fast. Once you graduate high school or college, there's a high probability you never pick up a book again. So if you have all of this technology and science accelerating and you're still kind of stuck here, if anything, moving backwards a little bit, because like, you're not in school for it anymore and it's not relevant to your job, totally understandable, but there's this huge gap and it makes me very nervous, right? So I'm trying to like bridge that gap so that you can kind of keep up with all of the new things happening. But like, if you were just in college 15, 20 years ago, I just have to refresh a couple of things and you can keep up. Be like, oh, I can appreciate what randomness actually means in this context and just the little stuff that makes a huge difference. So I do think we're going to be relevant for a while because of that, because it's nuance, which is not AI's biggest quality right now. But one day this is going to transform into something else. I just don't really know yet. I do think long form will be critical, but not an hour. I think there's going to be a big push into 10, 15-minute conversations about science, news, technology. But I think about it all the time because the worst mistake you can make is thinking everything's going to be the same.
Well, and for now, it sounds like the more things are changing, the more demand there is for someone like you to help us make sense of what's changing.
For now.
Yeah. Hopefully forever, people will prefer you to ChatGPT. I hope that's the case. And then when did you start writing fiction?
Yeah, I'd always been doing that, actually.
Really?
Again, another thing with UNH, I don't know if this is every university, but I think this is pretty common in New England, was you have to take, I think, like 5 writing intensive courses, regardless of what your major is. But I always enjoyed it. I like sitting down and just kind of going into a new universe and just kind of putting things together. The Iron Dreamers, which is the sci-fi trilogy I'm still working on, the first book came out this summer. The main character is actually my best friend. 4 of us were on a beach of all places in New Hampshire. And somebody was like, would you go into space? And everybody was like, yeah, I want to go to space. I would totally go to space, even with today's technology. She was the only one that literally physically dug her feet into the sand and said, no, I'm good. And we were all like, why? Why don't you want to go to space? Doesn't that sound? And she's like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. She's like, I will stay right down here. And there's something about that stuck with me that I'm like, that is so, what makes that mind so uninterested or afraid? I didn't even know what it was. And I basically built a whole book around that concept of what if she was forced to, though? And like, how would this country girl cope with something so out of her realm of experience? And, there's elements of like science and stuff, but also kind of the trauma of that. And I love building that kind of world and seeing how that will shake out and look.
I mean, but a lot of people have ideas or like thoughts of characters, but never actually sit down and write the thing. So like, what made you think I'm going to do this? And was it after you had sort of had a platform established on social media as a science communicator that this opportunity became possible?
Possible, yeah. But I had always just written for fun. Stagnation in my mind is not compatible.
Yeah.
And I had been writing for fun, but Mango Publishing had reached out to me to write a book on spatial dimensions, basically the video that made me go viral. So I sent some ideas, book titles, what I would do. And I was like, by the way, I have 2 chapters of a sci-fi book, even though that Mango Publishing generally just does nonfiction. And I sent them that and they came back to me and they were like, we're going to do the sci-fi book. So I was like, oh, okay. So having their support too, and then having deadlines makes a big difference. But they only came to me because of social media. So my path to being an author is not what most people experience, I think.
Mm-hmm. But you were ready to meet that moment with a lot of practice under your belt.
Yeah.
Because you wrote in college, but also it sounds like you've always liked to write.
What is that quote? Luck is opportunity meets preparation. But that's why I always tell people, just like, if you like something, just do it. Just do it. You never know. I'm writing for fun. I have no idea it's going to go anywhere, but it ended up working out. From the time I started writing that book to the time it was published was 11 months, which is very fast in the literary world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's another quote I've read that's like, you can't really tell the difference between extreme talent and extreme interest.
Ooh.
You notice when you are enjoying something and you lean into that, and that seems like that's just going to work out no matter where you go with it.
The real key is the authenticity and passion. And it's tough because you play this fine line of some people who genuinely don't have the talent and you can tell that they're not going to make it. And so at that point, it's like, yeah, but do you like it? Do you like what you're doing? If you like what you're doing and it's fulfilling, then just enjoy it. And if a professional opportunity comes along, great. And I just think that's so critical. Just find the thing that you like and enjoy. And if you make money off of it, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with hobbies.
Your story is such a good reminder that there is not one right way to do education. Even if you are starting out on the standard path, you're not necessarily going to end up that way, and things can still work out really great. So thank you for sharing all of this with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love talking about this stuff and hoping to relieve a little pressure off of especially 17-year-olds applying for college.
Thanks for watching this episode of College Journeys, and thanks to my guest, Ashley Christine. We all have a unique journey, and wherever you are in yours, Study Hall has resources to help you. From our fast guides to college majors, to actually signing up for college-level courses through GoStudyHall.com, we can help you on your path.